Okay, we're live. Hi, folks. Welcome to the DeFi Beyond Ethereum panel. Today we're going to be chatting DeFi. Those of you who don't know, DeFi is short for decentralized finance. It is a new movement in the blockchain space, which implies inclusive access to finance and new types of financial instruments that weren't possible without distributed ledgers. With me today are Toby from Fetch and Eden from Conflux Network. We're also due to have Eyal from Bancor join us. As for myself, I'm Theo. I'm at Outlier Ventures as a technology analyst. I'm also lead developer on one of Outlier Ventures' new ventures called Zip. And with that, I will let Toby introduce himself, followed by Eden.
Yeah, hi, I'm Toby Simpson. I'm co-founder and CTO at Fetch, and we're dealing with underutilization of assets and lost potential in the economy by bringing it to life with autonomous economic agents, and also using collective learning to build up collective knowledge models that can benefit everybody.
Great, and Eden?
Yeah, so I'm Eden Dhaliwal. I'm the global managing director for Conflux Network. I'm basically introducing this new layer 1 blockchain to the world. Previously I was a partner, head of crypto economics of Outlier Ventures, and happy to talk DeFi today.
Great, thank you both. As we're still waiting on Eyal, I'm just going to jump into some one-on-ones with you guys. So I'd like to start with you, Toby. So you started talking about Fetch, but could you maybe elaborate a bit more on what exactly Fetch is and how it's built?
Yeah. So I mean that key point I mentioned earlier about how we're dealing with underutilization of assets and lost potential in the economy is very important. There's a huge amount of value out there, particularly with the data that we collect and the knowledge that exists that simply doesn't get exploited because you don't know it's there. And we took the approach that if we were able to bring this stuff to life, so knowledge, data, services, IoT devices, and so on, by having them represented by digital entities, autonomous economic agents, then we would be able to create a scenario where value could deliver itself. So we would get effectively a common language for communication, and we're turning search inside out. So what you need or what you want, or indeed what you might want, is delivered directly to you. And what's important about this is you don't need any prior knowledge of that stuff in order for it to be able to be delivered to you. And we think that's very, very exciting indeed. Another aspect of this is the AI and machine learning part of Fetch. This is a key component, particularly things like collective learning, which is particularly important in decentralized finance because it allows people who've built up hard-earned, valuable databases to be able to protect the value of that, but at the same time contribute to an overall model that everybody can benefit from.
Great, thank you very much, Toby. I see we've been joined by Eyal. Eyal, I'm just in the middle of my one-on-one with Toby, and maybe we'll jump into your intro after I'm done with the one-on-one with Toby. Thanks for joining. All right, to follow up a little bit on specifically the DeFi, Toby, how exactly does Fetch.AI enable a better DeFi infrastructure?
Well, this is agents as services. And one of the aspects of this that we think is particularly value when you couple it with collective learning is activities around KYC, AML, fraud detection, and delivering risk knowledge. There's plenty of services out there that are providing this kind of capability, and they've built up a lot of internal value. This is a mechanism by which that value can contribute to an overall model that can benefit everybody, but without having to disclose all of that confidential information. And this is an aspect of collective learning that we think is extremely important in this space. It's an opportunity for everything relating to risk management and fraud detection to adapt in real time and from a great number of different sources of data rather than that stuff having to remain isolated. Philosophically, I guess it's that philosophy of services to all. the idea that you can provide this functionality across multiple ledgers and multiple technologies and bridge the stuff that's internal to the decentralized ledger space with the stuff that's external. And when you're doing things like KYC, AML, and risk and fraud protection, you actually need all of those things. You need to be able to join them together. You need those reliable, trustworthy connections to the outside world, as well as being able to join all of the data that you get access to internally. Great,
thanks very much. And very quickly, if someone wants to start building on Fetch, how do they get started?
Go straight to docs.fetch.ai, grab the agent framework and start building agents. It's a shared world that all of these agents are in. They can search it geographically and semantically. They can find each other by where they are and what they are, and then can transact with them directly.
Great. Thanks very much, Toby. All right, Eyal, thank you for joining us. Would you mind introducing yourself quickly?
Sure. Eyal Hertzog. I live in Israel. I've been an entrepreneur for the last 20 years. Built, mostly consumer applications on the internet, social network, video sharing site called metacafe.com, and got into blockchain 2011, and started to play with user-generated tokens, things in those kind of areas. I believe that a long tail of user-generated token will be created. So we started building companies around 2012. We discovered that liquidity for user-generated tokens is a problem. So necessity is the mother of all inventions. So we invented Bancor, released it in 2017, and did a large ICO. And we've been working on these kind of solutions, whether it's liquidity solutions and user-generated token solutions, ever since for the last 3 years.
Great, thanks very much. All right, I'd like to jump a little bit deeper into Bancor. Could you maybe elaborate as to what exactly Bancor does and how it's built?
Yeah, sure. So, first of all, it's important to understand really when we say liquidity, what we mean. When I say liquidity, I mean the ability to convert one form of assets to another, one token to another. And the challenge with liquidity is price discovery. How do you know what is the rate that should be used? And until very recently, for hundreds of years, there was only one way that was largely achieved, and this is through bid-ask exchanges, marketplaces, whether it was people shouting in the beginning or computers later on. But when we got into user-generated tokens, we realized that those solutions could not work, and we needed a solution that will allow to convert tokens and that will allow price discovery, which is the real challenge here, even for smaller tokens that may be used by a very small group of people. So they're not going to be traded frequently on exchanges with market makers. And when Ethereum came out with smart contracts, then that actually was the inspiration, I think, the spark of, maybe there's a solution using that. And the base Bancor smart contract, the liquidity pool that we heard in the world in the middle of 2017 is a very simple smart contract that holds two assets, and it is working in a very simple way. It believes that what it has on one asset is equal to what it has of the other asset. So if it has token A and B, and you have 100 token A and 100 token B, the smart contract will let anyone convert on a rate of 1 to 1 because it has 100 here and 100 there. But let's say that you convert one token of A to B, then the smart contract will have 101 token A and only 99 token B, and the rate wouldn't be 1 to 1 anymore. That would change the rate. So it creates a situation when you convert one token to the other, it actually increases the price of the token you're converting to, and that's essentially creating what we like to call asynchronous price discovery. Because today the price discovery is happening only when there are two parties that happens to agree on a specific deal between, and we have the last trade, which is how we do price discovery today. With the liquidity pools, the idea is that you don't need a counterparty. You can just buy or sell, and that would affect the price and create an opportunity for someone to buy or sell later, not at the same time that you do that. And that's obviously a solution that works for any size token community and doesn't have a barrier for liquidity, we like to call it. So Bancor removed the barrier of liquidity through smart contracts, and that concept has been going strong for 3 years since, whether it's Bancor or many other services like EOS, Uniswap, Tron, that basically created the local implementations of this protocol. But we believe in a world of multi-blockchain. I think very relevant to this session. And Bancor was designed to become a liquidity network between blockchain, not just inside the single blockchain. And it has extended itself to EOS about a year and a half ago. We were the first decentralized application to work across two blockchains. And we believe that this is the future we're going for.
Great, thank you very much. I think you've covered some of the challenges in building on-chain liquidity there. Very quickly, if you could maybe summarize the merits of building on Ethereum and then some of the downsides that might have motivated you to going for EOS.
The merits of building on Ethereum, it was first, and it was the only thing. We didn't have really any choice. I can tell you from, we're probably one of the only places that really simultaneously build application on two blockchains. On those two, we had a big team that of engineers is actually building simultaneously on EOS and Ethereum. And so I'm not the one to judge because I'm not doing the coding myself, but talking to the engineers, there's just no comparison. It's like, it's like comparing like a software with its previous version. I mean, and it's not, it's not because Dan Larimer is a genius. I mean, it just happened to see everything that happened in Ethereum, all the problems, all the complaints, and architected the system around that. So I think that by and large, the overall thing that I hear is EOS is much better, much more modern, much faster. And it's not its problem, just like Ethereum has its own problem. We had a rough time during CryptoKitties, but in general, it seems like a more advanced, more mature. It's a smaller ecosystem for DeFi because it came later. So a lot of tokens are hosted in Ethereum, and we see a lot of DeFi action going on Ethereum, and that makes sense. But technically, I would say it's quite superior almost on every aspect I can think of.
Thank you.
It's interesting we're calling this DeFi beyond Ethereum when actually we really mean as well as Ethereum. Because Ethereum was out there as a transformational technology. It gave us a glimpse of all of the things that were possible. And when they created that, they didn't imagine half the stuff that's going on right now. And people are building on it. They're spawning all sorts of new pieces of technologies that address some of these issues and give us the capability of doing some of this wonderful stuff. And I think you mentioned earlier, we're in a world now where there are new and previously impossible financial instruments coming out almost daily, enough to build an orchestra on a daily basis. And it was Ethereum with its smart contracts and all of these things that really gave us the route in to be able to even imagine that kind of stuff. So we work with it, we don't it's not like you take Ethereum and stick it over there and say, we're done with you now.
Absolutely.
There's a long life of that.
Indeed. Thank you, Toby. I totally agree with you. And we can talk about that a little later in the discussion, but for now, I'd love to go into a quick one-on-one with Eden. So Eden, you're at Conflux Network, and could you just describe what Conflux Network is and again, how it's built? It would be great, thank you.
Sure. So Conflux Network is a Solidity-compatible Layer 1 blockchain that combines proof of work with a directed acyclical graph. into what we call a tree graph structure. And essentially, this tree graph structure can manage very high transaction volumes without sacrificing decentralization and security. And so outside of Asia, I think people are probably just starting to hear about us, but I'd describe us as probably the most established public blockchain project in China. Our project is led by Turing Award winner Dr. Andy Eyal and a handful of amazing computer scientists from Tsinghua University and University of Toronto. We took a very block stack approach in our token issuance, making sure we were regulatory compliant, meaning we didn't do an ICO or an IEO. This kind of put us in a good position to build a developer community and work with industry without any concerns in China. And you can imagine how controversial a public permissionless blockchain could be in China. But through our approach, we've actually received a rare endorsement and funding from the Shanghai state government, which is obviously very strategic for us, Shanghai being the main financial center.
Great, thanks very much. And specifically, what benefits does Conflux Network bring to DeFi?
So we're very interested in creating liquid markets, meaning how do we help assets move more freely? How can we ensure the execution of high performance transactions, the type of security and speed of transactions we see in capital markets. And so, we've already started to build some key financial architecture on top of our blockchain. We've built a cross-chain protocol that lets crypto assets flow freely across different public blockchains. On top of that is a dual protocol that's essentially a twin ledger that executes high performance, real-time matching with on-chain settlements. I think the other thing that's probably worth noting is that, what we saw on Black Thursday was a tremendous amount of network congestion on Ethereum. And, if people can't make trades and liquidate their asset, it only breeds more panic and market volatility. And so, what we're aiming to do is create that infrastructure that's going to enable a more stable DeFi and certainly scalability, relieving network congestions, I think, is a big part of making sure that, the DeFi space is going to work the way we want it to work.
Great, thanks very much. Finally, what DeFi use cases are unique to Conflux Network?
So we're going to be launching our ecosystem grants program in the summer, and we'll be highlighting the type of use cases that we want to see on our network. Obviously, we've already built some valuable financial infrastructure that we think is ideal for DEXs, quant trading, flash swap services. But again, we're really interested in creating liquid markets, and we think stable coins are a big part of that. Obviously, we're open to crypto-backed stable coins, but we're also very interested in asset-backed and even non-USD stable coins. We've got a team in Africa. We're interested in developing use cases that would basically empower communities in developing countries where they could get access to lending and payments. And so we're just really trying to focus on how we can deliver liquidity and financial services and financial inclusivity, both at the infrastructure level and then also in terms of offerings for emerging markets.
Thank you, Eden. Thanks very much. All right, we'll jump into a discussion in just a sec. I want to quickly intro Zip, the project I'm working on. It's a nice follow-up to what Toby mentioned earlier. What we're trying to do with Zip is build cross-chain commodity. So we want to bring the interoperability to the economic layer. And what Zip is creating is effectively a blockchain cloud credit that works across chains. And what was really important to us when we were building Zip was what we don't want to do is we don't want to tear the tokens out of the chains themselves. We understand that Ether is fundamental to the way that Ethereum operates, and it does not work without Ether. Likewise for various other chains. So what we actually want to do is abstract away those tokens, but what's actually happening in the back end is those tokens are what's used to cover the cost of ledger fees. So in order to do this, we've had to create this DeFi protocol, which is effectively an on-chain liquidity pool that works cross-chain by wrapping non-Ethereum assets and sticking them in a liquidity pool on Ethereum. And for anyone who's actually using Zip, they can spend Zip on any chain, and it appears as if they're just spending this cloud credit. What's actually happening is the individual tokens of those underlying chains is being used to cover the cost of the ledger fees. And that is pretty much it. So with that, let's jump into a discussion. Anyone want to start us off?
Is it fair to say Zip is sort of almost like the gas station for everything, right?
That's a perfect way of putting it, indeed. We think of ourselves as a multi-network gas station. Absolutely. I have an interesting question regarding Conflux's consensus. When you described it earlier, Eden, it sounded very similar to the Fetch minimal agency scheme. Toby, would you agree with that? Do you find it enables a similar scalability on Fetch?
Well, scalability is key to all of these things, and I guess this has been touched on by more than one person in the end when particularly with Ethereum, of course, when something like CryptoKitties came along and nobody saw that coming. Everything grinds to a halt because the number of transactions that people want to push through it really exceeds the capacity of the network. And from our perspective, when we were looking at autonomous economic agents, if you start having agents that are representing every individual item of data, every vehicle, every IoT device, and a whole load of knowledge and services, that's a lot of individual components. And if those are transacting with each other continuously with relatively small value transactions, then you need a great degree of scale. And in a lot of cases, some of the existing solutions out there just simply aren't able to provide that scale. You just can't push the volume through that you need to. And you also can't push it through at a low enough cost to make it practical. And that's why particularly things like consensus need to be looked at to find how you can respond to this need to be able to do that and create this scalability.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we are still pretty much in the dial-up phase of blockchain, where you have a proof of concept, but it's way too slow for any normal human being to use, and too clumsy. But from that we go to the broadband, where it's much faster and you have much more capacity and much more fits in. And I think that Eden is a good example of someone who's working on technological breakthroughs with regards to scalability and taking it to the next level. And I think that we're seeing that with almost every particular technology. We see the same progression, the same very slow start, and then kind of explosion of technologies. And I think that's critical for us to be able to offer real applications on blockchain, because the reality that I see, at least in the last 20 years that I watched technologies take over, is that there's nothing that pushes technology forward other than consumer adoption. This is the only thing that pushed any technology. Never enterprise, never government, never anything, just consumer. And in order for the technology to be good enough for consumers, it needs to match a specific threshold. For example, smartphone did not get to that threshold until the iPhone. And what it did, and you had the first smartphone that was good for consumers. It took few years for the entire world to change completely to a level we cannot recognize it. So I think.
Well, even when it was happening, we didn't notice it. That was the funny thing. Some of the existing manufacturers, when the iPhone came out, said, "Well, this isn't going to sell."
Yeah.
You know, while Apple was busy sawing the legs off the chairs they were sitting on, they just didn't see it coming. But, you know, this is the problem with technology for technology's sake, isn't it? Nobody is interested in a pile of technology unless it can make their life better in some meaningful and obvious way. And that's where the internet was in its early days. You know, some people could get value out of it, but generally, the vast majority of people out there was nothing useful it particularly added to their lives. And it's a combination of protocols, technology, and all sorts. You know, like the web, when that came along, made accessing all this data easier. The technology got better and faster, and you could actually do useful things. And the protocols became more advanced. And that's where we are. I agree with you. You know, that's where we are with blockchain. We're in those early days, and we're still feeling around, seeing what it can do. But what it potentially offers is extraordinary. It's just that somehow that has to be packaged up into a way that everybody can see and benefit from it, rather than just a few select few that can jump through the many hoops of pain that are required in order to get yourself up to speed with this.
There's a seamlessness that needs to be created, right? So people talk about user experiences and the consumer experience, and that's really important. This space has been missing, you know, I would say some really good product design for a long time. But beyond that, there's also seamlessness within the infrastructure, right? And so, you know, the scalability at the blockchain layer is just one step, you know, in a series of steps that's required, that often required in settlement and executing smart contracts. So, you know, taking that infrastructure piece by piece and then optimizing it is going to help with that seamlessness.
Agreed. And that's what we're all collectively doing, right? We're all trying to make sure that the unique advantages and capabilities of all of these things can be connected together in a meaningful way, so that we can build these applications free of all of this pain. Because we can all imagine what this stuff can do. It's just been able to harness all these individual component parts so that we can realistically deliver it, and so that normal human beings can actually use it.
Yeah, I've been waiting for that for 9 years. I came from consumer application, and I got into blockchain in 2011, way too early. But, you know, interestingly enough, literally today, we released an application that is actually based on Bancor, but it's user-generated tokens in addition to moderated discussion board. I'm going to put it in the chat. Just, you know, it's a shameless plug, I know, but just because exactly what you guys are talking, this is the first time that we're putting something out there that we feel is completely and utterly obfuscate the blockchain. Like, a user wouldn't necessarily know that it has anything to do with, it's a consumer application. It's 100% decentralized, 100% on the blockchain, and that kind of at least encourages me that we are getting closer. We are getting closer to that people will just use it and wouldn't know what's in the background. And that spells for me, and I might sound extreme, that spells for me the end of Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I mean, those guys are like the AOLs of the past. There's no chance if they try to fight a decentralized and I would say ecosystem that builds services, just like Microsoft or Novell could not stand a chance against an ecosystem that builds software. They could beat any other company.
We're about to have the plug pulled on us. I think we're running out of time, aren't we? I wish we could continue, actually, because there's a lot more lovely to talk about.
Absolutely.
Things we think are cool and not cool for others. When you say to people, be your own bank, that frightens the living daylights out of other people. They go, what? I don't want to be my own bank. So, you know, we need to think about how we frame this stuff.
Indeed. And yeah, we are indeed out of time. It's been very, very interesting. There are 2 questions in the Q&A, which if the panelists would like to stay on and answer in the comments via just typing, that would be fantastic. But I want to thank you all for your time. It's been a fantastic panel. It's been a pleasure to speak with you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.